Hello there, and thank you so much for joining me for this fireside reading of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum, a book that he wrote in 1900. And almost immediately, it was a huge success. By 1902, there was a Broadway musical, and of course, in 1939 came the Hollywood movie that we all know and love. Now, I love that film, but one of the things that sometimes gets a little lost when you love a movie or a play is the original work. Sometimes it's a little different, sometimes it's a lot different. So, very simply here, we are going to read the original book in front of the fire, just like they did in the old days. I do hope you enjoy this fireside reading of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. Read to you by me, Gildart Jackson. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. This book is dedicated to my good friend and comrade, my wife, LFB. Introduction. Folklore, legends, myths, and fairy tales have followed childhood through the ages, for every healthy youngster has a wholesome and instinctive love for stories fantastic, marvelous, and manifestly unreal. The winged fairies of Grimm and Anderson have brought more happiness to childish hearts than all other human creations. Yet the old-time fairy tale, having served for generations, may now be classed as historical in the children's library, for the time has come for a series of newer wonder tales, in which the stereotyped genie, dwarf, and fairy are eliminated, together with all the horrible and blood-curdling incidents devised by their authors to point a fearsome moral to each tale. Modern education includes morality. Therefore, the modern child seeks only entertainment in its wonder tales and gladly dispenses with all disagreeable incident. Having this thought in mind, the story of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was written solely to please children of today. It aspires to being a modernized fairy tale in which the wonderment and joy are retained and the heartaches and nightmares are left out. L. Frank Baum, Chicago, April 1900. Chapter 1. The Cyclone. Dorothy lived in the midst of the great Kansas prairies with Uncle Henry, who was a farmer, and Aunt Em, who was the farmer's wife. The house was small, for the lumber to build it had to be carried by wagon many miles. There were 4 walls, a floor, and a roof, which made one room, and this room contained a rusty-looking cook stove, a cupboard for the dishes, a table, 3 or 4 chairs, and the beds. Uncle Henry and Aunt Em had a big bed in one corner, and Dorothy a little bed in another corner. There was no garret at all, and no cellar, except a small hole dug in the ground called a cyclone cellar, where the family would go in case one of those great whirlwinds arose, mighty enough to crush any building in its path. It was reached by a trap door in the middle of the floor, from which a ladder led down into the small dark hole. When Dorothy stood in the doorway and looked around, she could see nothing but the great grey prairie on every side.